Hello, I'm Karen Webster. I'm the Dean and Principal at LCI in Melbourne, and today we're thrilled to meet the iconic Melbourne designer Alice Edgeley. Alice has been described as my kind of dame, like a clever, saucy fashion illustration come to life. Now I've got you intrigued, haven't I? But Alice is a vision of style, creative prowess, and imaginative provocation. And then there's her work, which is equally captivating. So to quote from the website, not just a label, Alice Edgeley's fashion designs walk that all-important tightrope between high glamour and practicality. Not always sure about the practicality, but it's also elegance and kitsch. So let's meet Alice Edgeley.
Hi, Karen.
Hey!
Yeah.
Let's walk through to your studio, have a chat.
Come with me.
Hi, Alice.
Hi,
So
Karen.
great to be here today. It's an absolute thrill because you're one of Melbourne's most creative designers.
Thanks.
And this is one of Melbourne's most creative studios. So thank you very much for allowing us to come into the world of Alice Edgeley.
Welcome.
I've been doing a little bit of research before we came along today, just reading some previous interviews, and I read that you come from a long line of tailors and dressmakers. So I'd love to know a little bit about the young Alice. Like, when did you first realise that you were a creative? Were you always a creative kid? Did you explore? What was the young Alice like?
I was creative and I was interested in clothes. I loved dressing up. I looked really wacky. I was, not... The kids at school just didn't get it. Some got it, some just... Even the teachers, I remember asking me what was on my head when I went through a turban wearing phase.
So you still go through a turban wearing phase, so it hasn't, never left you.
No, and I don't even remember learning to sew. So my mum must have taught me, but I made dolls, like little rag dolls, and I made clothes for the dolls.
And what age would have you been when you were doing that?
Maybe 7 or 8 or quite young,
So when did you discover that fashion was in your blood, like as in wanting to work in this industry?
Probably when I was about 9 or 10. I've still got my first fashion illustrations.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they're on really old looking butcher's paper. But I had obviously seen a fashion illustration where, they're quite minimal. So I had floating lips and eyes and little floating hands and then the little outfit.
Oh, well, we'll have to have a Alice Edgeley retrospective one day and we'll bring them all out. And were your parents creative?
Yes. My dad's architectural illustrator, so he was from the time when you actually did the illustrations. He had a big wall of Derwents and lots of paints he did. It was the 80s, so he did airbrushing, and his office smelt like Derwent pencil sharpenings, and so he was creative, but in a kind of architect-y way. And my mum's just really interested in fashion, so she dressed up. I grew up in Camberwell, Burwood, and she had bleached cropped hair like Annie Lennox, and she wore a big pink tulle bow on her head and different coloured plastic sandals, and she had overalls and big boots, and all the other mums had nice bobs and gold chain bracelets and nice navy cardigans and drove Volvos.
Oh, I love it.
But she had no friends like that. I don't know where she got it from. So she was just like,
Which your parents came over from the UK. You were born here, is that right?
Yeah.
But then you gravitated back to the UK. So tell us a little bit about your journey, the trajectory from between the 9-year-old Alice discovering fashion illustration and the quirkiness around you, with obviously some creative influences, to the Alice that headed off, packed everything up and headed off to the UK.
It was a long time in between. So I actually didn't do that until I was 27. Though I did lots of travelling in between. I just didn't. I worked in bars. My first job was a costume apprentice at Rose Chong's when I was 16.
Fantastic. So Rose Chong is the matriarch of costume in Australia, and she's got a fantastic studio down the road in Gertrude Street. Yeah.
So I was doing a fashion orientated BCE at Box Hill, even though I didn't really have the confidence to think that I could be a fashion designer. I always designed. It's just my pastime, you know. If I'm walking to the bus, I'm thinking of outfits that I could never wear. Like, I wasn't thinking about outfits to wear to blue light discos or anything. I was thinking of like turquoise corsets with bows and little mules and silver mini skirts, and so I started the fashion VCE, and I went on work experience to Rose Chong's, and she offered me, she could see that I could sew. I was making jeans, flares, and she offered me an apprenticeship. So I did that for a while, and then I was just like, I don't really want to work in costume. I hate making things like, we made, you know, like koala bear costumes and stuff.
Yes,
and
yeah.
I'm just not interested in that. But
we didn't have that inventive element to it, or the style element.
I like beautiful, glamorous things. I didn't want to just be covered in pretend koala fur.
So do you think there's a crossover between your work and costume though? Do you think that there's still a fusion?
Totally, yes. Yes, and that has like kind of come full circle with me. I now do the kind of costumes I like, glamorous costumes for showgirls, and still quite silly, playful ones, and just everyday clothes. But yeah,
Not
it's a long
everyday
time.
clothes. Well, actually, I think they're everyday clothes because I think we should all wear sparkle to the supermarket.
Yeah.
But you do push the boundaries for a lot of people on what might be called everyday clothes.
Yes, but I try and test them. I test them all. I wear them for walking the dog.
Right, so I
wear them to my Pilates class. I wear them for everything. So.
And you work with stretch, so we'll get into all of that. I want to go back a little bit. So you've got Rose Chong. What did make you decide to pack your bags and go to the UK then?
So I worked for Rose Chong, I worked for some other designers, I worked for Nevada Duffy, I worked for Douglas and Hope, I worked for Ammo, because I could sew, I could always get that kind of work, and I worked in bars and, you know, as a hairdresser. And then I thought I kind of wanted to work doing film styling or costumes. So I worked on a really amazing film with Cappy Ireland, who's an amazing film costume designer. She got me a job and I worked with her on that. And it was the peak of where I could go with that. And I hated it. I hated being on set. I don't feel that comfortable working with men. Like, it's quite macho on set, and I just felt really uncomfortable with that. I also don't want to be in a parka every day. I found that really depressing. So I made some money working on this film, and it was a beautiful film with Joan Chen called The Home Song Stories.
Oh, beautiful.
It's a beautiful story with Tony Ayres. He's an amazing director. And then the costume standby said, do you want to work on the next job with me? And I could have gone on, and I was so cross with myself, but there's just no way I could do it. I hated it. I was like, shit, this isn't working, to do something else. So I'd saved up quite a bit of money working on that, because you can't do anything else when you're working on a film, because you're working
Yeah,
really
they own your
long
soul.
hours.
Yes.
So I just was like, there was amazing fashion designers coming out of London at the time. It was when Richard Nicol and Giles Deacon and Henry Holland and Christopher Kane had just all graduated. So I thought, I'm just going to go to their studios. I'd read something about someone wanting a job at Vogue and just going to their offices every morning and sitting there until someone gave them a job. So I thought, right, I'm going. I put a turban on, I tied all these multicolored bandanas over my head in bows, and I went to what I thought was Christopher Kane's studio, not knowing that he was so small and so like at the beginning of his career that I was going to his house because he worked from his home, and he came to the door in a dressing gown and he was like, yeah, look, we're looking for interns next week. So Maria Flora, who's the studio manager, she'll contact you. So next week I got a call from Maria Flora and I went in and talked to them. I think I did a day's worth of work. And they played, you know, when you go somewhere and they play music that you're just like, oh yes, I am home. Yep. They played Kate Bush. And I was just like, oh great. And they could see I could sew, and so I did like an internship for a week, I think, or two, and then they offered me wages. So
That's
I got
awesome,
a job.
because actually a lot of those smaller designers could not afford to pay for a lot of their...
It was a really shit wage. It wasn't a proper wage, so it was a really shit wage, and it didn't pay all my bills or anything, because it's expensive to live in London.
Oh yes.
So I'd have to go to Tammy, who is Christopher's sister, and she's the brains behind their business. She's amazing. I'd go to her and be like, I can't pay my bills, and she would say, give me a bill, and she'd pay it for me. Wow. But yeah, then I just worked there.
Can you remember what year this was?
It was 2007, I think. 2007, yeah.
Yeah, so a really interesting time to be in London and what was happening with London fashion.
Yeah, it was great. And I was already, how can I have been 27 then? I was about 27. So it was quite weird because I was older than Christopher. He had just finished uni. I was about the same age as Tammy, and all the other people I was working with were just either interns at uni or just out of uni. So everyone was late teens, early 20s. So it was kind of weird. And it was my first job where I was more experienced than everyone in manufacturing and making things. So I really had to wing it because, yeah, I hadn't been in that position before, but it was great. I learnt really fast.
Yes.
And
you get thrown in the deep end, and what advice would you give someone today who might be like a younger Alice, who is making that decision to pack everything up and to go and live somewhere and knock on someone's house? Would you encourage that for emerging designers today?
Yes, because I think I've just learned so much from working with other people. It's been so frustrating sometimes when you can't say, oh, I would do this way, or that's not going to work. Or, whatever, or you just, you want to have design input. If you want to be a designer, you really want to join in on that. But working for someone else, you can't. They don't really want to know your ideas unless they ask for them. You're just there to help them. But you learn how they run their business, how they work their ideas out. I learnt. I wasn't confident enough to start my own thing straight away, so I really wanted to learn from other people, and I just aimed I went to the one I wanted.
And do you think that being exposed to that, you realise, was that the realisation for yourself that I can do this? I actually have got something here?
No. I still didn't know. It was still terrifying to start my own thing, but I just knew that I was going to choke if I didn't, because I felt like I was just holding back so much that I wanted to do. I felt like I kind of had to.
Right. Yeah. So we then benefit because you come back to Australia and you start Alice Edgeley in Australia. Is that right? Is that what happened?
Yeah. I came back here. I actually hooked up with the guy up the road, and he had lived in London before, and so he had friends there, and he came over for a party. And we hooked up, and then we just didn't expect to hook up, but then we were having a long distance relationship, and he didn't want to move back to London because he had kind of established himself here. So I knew if I was going to start my own thing, I kind of wanted, it would be easier to start it here because I had had way more of a support system. Obviously, I just had been in London for 3 years and I didn't know that many people. So yeah, and then he really encouraged me. He was like, "You've got to do it. You can do it. You just need to open a shop, and you'll be, dealing directly with your customer." And I worked for another designer here, and they were just real hacks. So I just thought, yeah, just got to do it.
So 2 things there. You started this. Well, you moved in here 2010.
Yeah. So I moved back, and I started this within the year.
And that hookup is still going today as well.
Yeah.
So that worked out as well.
Oh my goodness, yes. It was a huge leap of faith. I thought this is going to turn to shit, or this is going to go somewhere, and it's worked out really well.
Yeah, so life's all right in the end. So I describe you as a provocateur. You push the boundaries and the status quo of what we know as fashion, but also style. How would you describe your own aesthetic?
I'm really not very good at this, but I would say I love colour. I love weird colour combinations, and I like there to be an element of humour to the way I dress and the way I design. I also really like turning quite possibly, I call them, it's kind of disgusting, so something quite revolting. I like being able to make it beautiful.
Do you have an example of anything that could be?
Yeah, well, even this, it's kind of revolting. This weird orange coloured mesh. So it could be quite tacky.
It's kind of a figure skating mesh, isn't it? Yeah. But you've put these crystals on yourself?
I've put crystals, and this is going to be a really beautiful costume. But let me just, where's a bit of fabric? Okay, so say this bit of fabric. This fabric I found, and I was like, oh my goodness, that is a pretty dated design. The colours are good, but they're it's kind of awful. It could be really awful.
Yeah, but it's the kind of thing, if you found a garment in it, it might be in the op shop. It may not be on the rack, Looks fabulous when you hold it up to yourself with those incredible earrings.
It's nice with these earrings and with this hair. But I think that I learned from Christopher Kane is that you don't always do the most obvious things. So I think maybe coming from costume and liking really cartoony things, I'll often go for something really obvious. If you have capri pants, then maybe you want like a big hat. But Christopher really went against the grain with doing things, and he also really liked things when they were kind of revolting. So if they were kind of ugly, so I made this into like a Marie Antoinette inspired cat. jumpsuit with frilly sleeves and velvet bows, and then I was so happy. I knew it had
worked. Yeah.
It worked, transcended the revoltingness. And it's really interesting.
Maybe that's your tagline, transcend the revoltingness.
Yes. So that's a big element, humour.
And the inspiration
glamour.
for this piece here?
This is Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, the film that I've watched so many times. I think I know every word, but as a child I watched it because there used to be old films on the TV. And this is Jane Russell. This was inspired by Jane Russell's outfit when she walks into the dining room with Marilyn Monroe and they are going out to dinner, and anyway, they both have these amazing outfits. Jane Russell is wearing a black sequin one, and Marilyn Monroe is wearing this beautiful, what's that design? Trevilla, orange, chiffony one. It's all gathered up the front and it's got like crystals all hanging. It's so feminine and it's just gorgeous. And Jane Russell is just in black sequin. It's really graphic designs, and this
comes from that inspiration.
It's that
beautiful.
It's that beautiful diamond design.
And this is the type of piece that I think transcends between you say it's a costume, but actually it's a completely wearable piece, depending on how you may not just wear the bodysuit out, you would actually wear it with a skirt or
I would make matching legging kind of trousers, like cigarette kind of legging trousers out of this sequin, and then it would be like a Studio 54 kind of. Yeah, some little gold heels, big hair, yeah.
So you're a multifaceted woman. You're pretty incredible. I often wonder what it is that you can't do, like listening to your history before and all of the different places you've worked, and you've even done hairdressing and everything. But you're a performer, you're a drummer, you're in a band, you do fashion, you do costume, you do bespoke, you do a collection.
I do modelling. I model it too, just because it's easier.
So tell me, what is a typical day for Alice, or a typical week? You know, what is the mix in that you get out of bed, and what do you do?
Well, I start my day. My favourite bit is when I get to do my makeup. I love painting my face in the morning. So I have like a special tray. I bring in all my makeup, sit at the table, do my face, set myself up, and then I might walk the dog, get to work. Usually I just sit down and do emails. It's so boring. But emails can just go on forever, can't they? There's just so much admin. I do, and just until recently, I do my own bookwork, and so there's accounting, bookwork stuff to put in, emails, finding the right fabrics for things, because I do lots of custom. I'm always trying to find the right fabrics for people. So that takes up quite a bit of time. I do my own photo shoots, so I style them. And I mean, fashion, there's always another collection coming up, so researching that, waste a bit of time on Pinterest.
I do think people often think that a designer, a fashion costume type designer, sits here and just, beautiful sketches and makes, but actually the smaller independent designer, you've got to be able to do everything. You've got to be...
Even big designers, like even Christopher, once he got big, they're not designing all the time. It's like, well, for me, I reckon it's 4% of what I do. So I clean the shop, I make it, do some merchandising. I have, it's a lot of fiddling. So do you think that's
why you have the other creative outlets as well, or it gives you an opportunity to put the persona of Alice Edgeley out there?
Yes, just for my mental health.
Yeah, good.
Well, yes. I didn't know how to drum when I joined the band, so I had to learn how to drum. So, I mean, that's just something, it's nice to learn something new, isn't it? And I feel like I don't want to get stuck. I don't want to be one of those people who's like, oh, I'm too old to do that, or...
Yeah.
So never. I just think, like learning new stuff. So I turned 40 a few years ago, and I did my first gig when I was 42. We played at the Prince of Wales.
Brilliant.
So I wore a catsuit, I wore a G-string over the top of it. It's like, fuck it, come on.
Yeah.
In my life I have found I often am the person that's reassuring people that it's okay. Whatever weird stuff you're doing, it's not weird, it's totally fine. You don't have to follow the normal trajectory.
So do you have to have a chat to yourself and say, it's okay, I can do this? Or do you have other people in your life that do that for you?
No, yeah, I do. I'm constantly. I need reassurance, but I don't know. I just love making stuff.
So I'm personally enamoured by your retail design space, and I feel like it's the Aladdin cave of inspiration. You know, we look around and all your books are awesome, your visuals, all your little boxes of things, everything here. But do you have a favourite piece in here, or do you have something that you absolutely love or you gravitate to?
For inspiration, well, I love all those books, so it's always good to have a flip through a beautiful book. I think the thing I'm most proud of are the patterns.
These patterns are beautiful, by the way. They're really sharp patterns.
Because they're kind of the backbone of everything.
I think it's really important for designers, and especially emerging designers, to understand that the pattern craft is as important to the design process to get that fit shape right.
It's everything. It's really, I've worked with amazing pattern makers over the years, and so I love fiddling with patterns, and I like making them, but I always get them professionally graded, and then when I make them up, I might fiddle with them a bit more to make sure they fit really nicely, all the sizes, because it's quite difficult to get all the sizes perfect. What was I going to say?
So you only grade when you're doing a collection. How many collections do you do? Do you do one every season? How do you work?
I do 2 collections a year, but I'm reconsidering that at the moment. Even though I do love the treadmill of fashion, because I feel like it's good to have deadlines, because I need a deadline. I would never get anything done. But it's also good to be pushed to do things. I noticed that my musician friends can sit on a single or something for 3 years, and I'm just so used to having to get stuff done that I just think, come on, get it out now. It's never going to be perfect.
It is interesting though, the cycle of fashion. We're at a time where we can challenge it a little bit as well.
Yeah, so I don't do huge collections. I do sometimes 10 looks, around 10 looks.
Right.
And that can be a few different garments per look, but if I don't get that, it's fine. And then I reuse my patterns a lot. I don't always make a new pattern every season. I mean, I don't make a whole range of new patterns. It's just too expensive. Also, the fit is so much to me because I work directly with customers. So I see how things fit, and I really know my patterns really well. So I will know she can have a size 10 top, she can have a size 12 sleeve, so it's not too tight around the arms.
Perfect.
We'll do like a size 14 on the hips. When she comes to try it on, we can nip it in at the waist if it needs. And then, because I work in stretch, all stretches differently, so then you have to take that into account. So sometimes all the sizes have to go up a size so that they fit so the spot fabric, for instance, wasn't as stretchy as usual stretch, so I had to do what's the size 10 on the rack is actually a size 12 pattern.
Oh, that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. So patterns are a huge part of the business and the design. So
Do you have a process? Does it start with a spark and inspiration, or is it more an evolution?
yeah, I can show you some drawings. I've got my little sketches over there with the swatches and everything.
So, process, you have a process? Do you have a spark of inspiration, or is it an evolution?
I've got sketchbooks obviously, but so I'll do things like this. I'll have them for sometimes a long time. So this bat costume was hanging around for a long time, and it wasn't until lockdown last year that I thought it's time to do something really practical for people sitting at home.
So the bat costume is the practical sitting at home.
Yeah. I needed to do something really exciting. So that I do all these sketches and I pull them out, then I try and find, it's often the fabric, I'll find some fabric and then I'll be like, oh, that could be perfect for this, and then I'll make it. So this one, for instance, I was so excited about. I made it and it was a disaster.
Oh no!
So the fabric just didn't work. It didn't stretch. It's not a four-way stretch, the leopard. And so it didn't sit beautifully for this design. I could have done it, but I just knew I wouldn't be happy with it. It's not going to be perfect. It'd be one of those dresses that you're like, oh my God, this is an amazing dress. And then you wear it once and you're just like, it's not quite right. So
you don't want the not quite right. Yeah.
I test them, I often wear things before they go out. And this one, I was so happy with this one. I made this one, but it's got the
it's fab.
It's got these beautiful
daisies
around the silhouette. So I really enjoyed
this.
that.
What's this one over here?
It's similar to this.
Shape.
Similar to this.
I love this.
The silhouette, which is something I did before I'd even started the label. I just made it for myself.
Because there's a Edgeley ethos, in terms of the stretch, but also the shapes. There's a sensuality and elegance to all of them. It seems that you do evolve from each collection, but there's still really distinctive codes that belong to your look. Like you must know as soon as you see a colour or a fabric that will be right for me.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Mostly I do, unless it's something really revolting, and then I take it home anyway,
and then I'm just
like, is this gonna work?
I love. We've just seen here that you've got the fantastic rainbow mesh, which was just perfect for when Pride Festival happened in Gertrude Street. So you're lucky you find pieces like this that have got this authenticity, but they're very Edgeley.
Yes. I found this in LA.
She just
in the
says
fabric.
Yeah. I found this in LA.
And brought it back. I brought, can I just have 15 metres of that or whatever? And
so it's quite precious as well.
Yeah. It's nice to know where it came from. For me, it's nice to know that it was from an adventure.
Yes. So one of the things I also love about how you work is that you respect the wearer, and you don't just, make things in a small or a medium, even though they're body hugging, that you really do look at the shape of a woman or a man. And
I don't look at the shape of men.
No?
I'm just not interested in their form. It's quite difficult actually when sometimes I have a man who wants something, so I'll make a cat suit or something for a man if they want it. But I have spent, ever since I've been making clothes, so since I started work, so since I was 16 and started working in costume, I have looked at women's bodies and worked out how to fit them. And it's something I still do. I look at people on the train or when I go anywhere. I'm just sizing them up and working out how, that looks really good on her. And I can I can measure someone by sight. So I've like, someone tested me in the bakery once. They were like, oh, how big's my pregnant stomach? And it was to the centimetre.
How fantastic.
Yeah.
What an intuitive talent you have there. And so you also make bespoke though, and costume.
I do.
You do a lot of performance pieces.
Yeah, it's just been an evolution of having the shop. So I started the shop, I thought I'm doing a collection. I did a collection, it was in the shop, people making orders, and then I didn't really expect to do bespoke fitting. I just kind of thought I'd make sizes, but then obviously people come in, they're not a size. No one is a standard size. Like, it's actually a freak that is a standard size because it's just a statistic. It's not they're not based on people's actual sizes. It's just they got a whole lot of sizes together and made an average. That's how sizing started.
You know the history of all that?
Yeah.
It's crazy stuff.
And
back in the 1970s, done by the Australian Women's Weekly, it was like...
So, and then, so no one's really a size.
No.
So then I would have to make things to fit different sizes, and I'd be like, oh my God, yes. And also I can tell that you need that a little bit shorter because you're shorter, or it would just look better. I'm really into proportions. I'm fascinated.
We were talking about body length and things like that before, how important they are, that everyone is so different.
Yeah, so I've
got the eye
had
for
to do it, and I also
we're very lucky
like
that
to fit.
And it's actually really difficult to teach something like that, but it is an intuitive.
Well, yeah, and it takes practice. It's
Yes.
really I'm thinking about them when I'm cutting too, and then the costume thing just happens.
So this is the current or the next one? What else are you working on at the moment?
This is current. I haven't even started the next one. I have started in my head, but there's no sketches yet. I haven't really been able to sketch that much since the pandemic started. I'm just not inspired to sketch, so it's been a bit of a problem. But I've got some beautiful fabrics that I know, lots of different weird fabrics that I've just collected.
Maybe you'll have to start collaging or doing
and
things
then
differently.
I know that they're going to work together.
Brilliant.
All these different fabrics from different places, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, all these ones, they're all Devore. So I'm going to do like a Devore patchworky kind of stuff, and I'm collaborating with this girl, Abby, who's just finished at RMIT. I'm going to collaborate with her on some things. So she's coming in today. And then I'll just have to bang it out really quickly because then it will be autumn and people will need to start getting in the mood for that.
So we're here in your incredible studio, retail, combination, atelier. One thing you also do is promote other creatives. You're an advocate for Australian design. Is there anyone whose work you kind of represent here in Melbourne who you think are doing something that's really fantastic?
There are. I'm just always on the lookout for other people doing things. There's quite a few people that I want to do things for the zine. So the Bad Weekend zine, I've got lists of interesting people that I have contacted or want to contact about that. And then there's Abby, who makes really interesting stuff, who's just graduated from RMIT. I don't know what her label is or what it's going to be, but there's Oscar Keane, who something to do with RMIT as well. He's a student, he worked for me a bit, so I'm really interested to see what he does. And then there's Jan Drews, who is a local performer. He makes costumes and he's really very, very clever. He's a drag performer. He makes amazing costumes. I always love seeing what he does.
And what about the earrings? You've got amazing earrings in here.
By Doodad and Fandango, who is a
name.
Sydney girl, and a woman. She's I've been working with her for years and she's really great. And she's just brought out a new collection called Bougie something, and it's really kind of 90s supermodel, lots of gold and different coloured jewels and pearls and chain belts and
so they certainly complement your collection as well.
Yes. I sent some outfits up for her to use for the shoot, and I'm going to email her today to see if she wants to do some kind of collaboration coming up, because I love working with her.
That's great.
And she's really fun. She's got really great ideas, and
so it's great because also it's supporting the community of design and creativity. And you make everything here or in Melbourne?
Yeah, I make most of it myself because I am just a sucker. I like sewing, but also I'm just not super organised, and it's always small productions. So for me, I started this business with $2,000, so I didn't have a huge injection of money, and so it's kind of easy for me to be like, okay, we'll just do like a few sizes, I'll just make them, put them in the shop, get some orders, next thing.
And is that how you work most of it? Someone will come in, have a look, and you'll make to order?
Yes. And then since the pandemic, when I couldn't open, it was just made to order, so that was actually great for me. I mean, I didn't have to have a rack full of clothes. But people do like to come in, and sometimes people do want them straight away. They're still used to that old idea. But people are really getting their head around the idea of ordering and having to wait for things.
What kind of time frame between placing an order? If you've got the fabric already here, how long would you normally take?
Well, I'm a sucker for a fashion emergency, so I can have been known to do something, like by the end of tomorrow.
Oh, my goodness.
You're
fast. Spoiling people out there.
Sewing, but usually it's 3 weeks. And at the moment,
3 weeks is
way longer than 3 weeks because I've just had the coronavirus. So I am quite slow and my brain is not working that well. And I've had to leave work early a lot and go home and go to bed.
And you've got to look after you, absolutely.
Yeah, and there's only, I can't afford to get sicker. So,
So, but that's amazing though. That's really personalised service. That's going back to the old concept almost of tailor and the bespoke service.
Yes, it's great. It's super convenient for me, and I'm just opening a shop by appointment, so I'm like rolling back the idea of it being a shop and more
a salon.
Like a salon or a studio, so people understand that they're coming into my workroom rather than it just being a shop where you can just come on in whenever you want. And yeah, and it does actually create relationships then where people really are part of the process. Yes, I like to work with nice people. Like if some people are just not nice customers and they're not welcome.
Don't come over that threshold. No.
No, I don't want to. I don't need them. I'd rather not have the job. So I have lovely customers who
So it's interesting because we have been through a crazy couple of years with the pandemic, and you yourself have been struck down by it. But out of all of this, we are actually starting to see, there's a lot of talk amongst the design community, especially in Melbourne, of this kind of newfound respect for independent design. Yeah. Are you seeing that?
I have benefited from that a lot. It was almost as soon as it started, people were really worried about local small businesses, and I got orders. I had people ordering gift vouchers because they were just like, I just want to put the order in. I don't mind when you get it to me. Amazing. I just want to order something from you because I realise that you can't open. And it was, I have cried many times with people being so nice, and also from the stress, but from people being so nice and really trying, really understanding about local businesses, because lots of people don't. They don't know, they don't understand. They're really surprised that there's a sewing machine here. They've never seen anyone who makes their clothes. And when I first opened, I had a guy saying, how come this is this much? You can just make another one. He was bargaining me down.
Wow.
But I feel like that probably wouldn't happen now.
No.
Because people are much more aware
Yep.
of the fact that small businesses need people to frequent them, otherwise they're not going to be here.
That's right. I think there has been an awareness. Also, people went through their wardrobes in the last 2 years and went, I've got all this stuff here that I don't need. I think I need to buy better. I need to have something that's special. And this is an opportunity to buy Alice Edgeley. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about advice to, like, you know, we work with students on a daily basis, and it's like, what advice would you give to the next generation as they're moving out into this new world?
I have some advice, but that maybe no one would want.
No, I'm asking you for it.
The reason I kept that job, the reason I got put on the payroll at Christopher Kane was because I stayed late. I finished the job, I worked on the weekend. I put the bin out. This is one of the most important and sucky things that you can do at any establishment, is put the bin out. People notice. If you're like part of the team, you're like helping relieve the person whose business it is by doing small things like that. It's those kind of things that help a work, help a...
It's great advice for anyone in any business, actually, is that sense of awareness as well of who you're working with and how you support each other.
I know a lot of people come out of school and they just want to design. They say, you know what I'm really interested in doing is the designing. And I'm just like, yeah, look, that's my 4%. You think
I'm
you're
going to
coming
give that
anywhere near my 4% designing? Like, I'm happy to hear it. If I ask for advice about something, would you put these two revolting fabrics together or whatever. But what I really need is help with in the workroom. So you kind of just have to work hard, but also
and
to
not
work
be
with...
too precious, I think.
Not be too precious. You just be easy to... Or my mum said, you just have to make yourself indispensable. And that is...
Great advice.
Saying, do you want coffee? Can I go down and get the coffees? You have to stay till you've finished the job you're working on. So if you've got half an hour's extra work and you're going to have to work to 6:30, you'll be like, I'll just stay and finish it. Just get it finished.
What next for Alice Edgeley?
Well, yes. I will finish this new collection, and since we're kind of managing the pandemic differently, now we can have events. I'm going to have a really loose kind of Edgeley launch like we used to have. I'm going to have models. There's now tables out the front because of the outside seating, because of the pandemic. So I thought, great, models can stand on those and people can see things. I know a girl who does this amazing opera singing. Oh, she could sing something. And so that will be really exciting, and we'll have to get onto that ASAP.
And will Alice be performing on drums?
No, Alice will not. Though I have made all costumes for the band, for my band. So I've made us all new wardrobes for 2 things. So we did our first gig in here. I made us all outfits for that.
So a little spruik for the band, the
name
of the
Imperial
band.
Leather, so you should come see us play. And also the Bad Weekend zine that I made at the end of the lockdown.
This zine, I love it. Yeah.
I've got issue 2. It's actually really almost finished. So that will have a launch. So then maybe we'll have a launch for that too. And also then I've got more ideas for issue 3 already, because you always start coming up with ideas, don't you? Just as you're doing all the annoying bits to finish up the last project. So yeah, those things.
You've got a lot on your plate. Can I just thank you? You've been absolute inspiration.
Oh, thank you.
I could talk to you all day. It is absolutely fascinating. But I just love your spirit and your respect for the local industry, and let's have everyone wearing Alice Edgeley
Yes.
catsuits out there really, really soon. Thank you so much.
A pleasure, thank you.